All right, welcome in to another episode of Carps Corner. And this little bye week episode, get the little midweek mailbag, look at some games, preview some of those that are coming up that I think will be pertinent to Ohio State and the Big Ten at large and how that's going to shake out and how that'll ultimately look. So it'll be important to kind of dig in on that, kind of see what's happening there as well, because that's some stuff, folks, that I know nobody wants to think about it, but the first college football playoff rankings will be coming out pretty soon. And with that, it's going to be important for the Buckeyes. 2 and 3, basically the same ranking. If they can find a way to get to 1, that would be ideal, because I think people have kind of looked at this. There might be 3 elite teams. That 4th team, Michigan might be there. We'll see. Ohio State will play them eventually. Could it be a Clemson? Tennessee, they're going to play. Bama, we'll get into a little bit of that this week. But just how important it is to ultimately look and try to figure out exactly where Ohio State is, where they need to go. They've got Iowa coming up. And I mean, I don't know if that should really scare anybody. Joking with some of the corners here, I'm like, if you guys let these dudes get deep on you this week, then I mean that's grounds for benching, given the fact that like they basically have me out there playing wide out, and their inability to throw the football down the field or generate really any type of offense shouldn't be concerning to anyone. So defense should be good to go. Offense getting healed up and getting healthy and ready to go. So big question is like, what do you do on the bye week? What exactly is it that you do? Well, number one, try to get healthy. That's key. Try to get some of your strength back. Usually guys get some good lifts in. Depending on where the bye week falls, and that's what's tricky, is how much do you hit? Falling mid-season like this, I don't think you need to hit very much. And I think Ryan probably agrees with that. Maybe you go one day that's physical, and depending on how your team is playing, and they're playing well, they're playing physical. Last year, maybe not as physical of a group. So you needed to hit a little more. You needed to bang a little more, be a little more physical to be able to have that success. This year, I think you're proven. And that's why Ryan, you see every week, run the football, stop the run, be a tough football team, competitive stamina, all the things he talks about, they're executing. And so with that, what I'm going to do for you fellas? We'll dial it back. We're not going to bang a lot during the bye week. We want to make sure we get healthy, get everybody feeling good. We'll run through some things. We're going to clean stuff up. Some of the issues we had. Okay. What are some of the things? All right. Whether it's deep balls on defense, working through some of that stuff, certain plays and route combinations. If there's any runs, you got to get cleaned up. Offensively, same thing. Is there stuff that has been giving you problems, things that you've had issues with that you need to really look at and work on? You kind of break those down and you go through the first 6 games that you had. What gave us issues? Boom. It's called self-scouting. What gave us issues on each side of the ball? Now we're going to throw these things back out there. We're going to see if we've got them corrected. If our players understand, because here's the reality. Teams will continue to keep doing that stuff as long as they can have success with it. So someone may dig up something, from the Toledo game, from Arkansas State, dig up something that Notre Dame did if you have a lot of tight ends and some unique personnel. So there's a lot of things there. And then you also go back, another part of self-scouting. So look at both sides of the ball. What are our favorite calls? What do we like to run on 3rd and 5 on offense? What do we run on 2nd and 10 on defense? Do we ever bring pressure there? Offensively, do we always run it after an incomplete pass? What does our P and 10, our first play of the drive look like? If you're Jim Knowles, do you always blitz on, do you never blitz maybe on 3rd and 10? Do you always blitz in 3rd and short? What do you look like in the red zone? Because you've had success doing things. And so like, okay, you keep doing what works, but at some point in time, like, okay, we need to develop a counter to that, a number 2, and some off-speed pitches to where they know what our fastball is, and we can still do it, and we can always out-execute them. But we now realize that there's some other things there that we can go to that we've been working on the side. And so that's what the bye week's for. Get healthy, get some weights in, get feeling good, correct issues from before. Take a look at yourself, realize what you've been doing and what you've been doing well, and understand that other teams are going to start to see those tendencies, especially 6 weeks in. And so the bye week comes at a really good time. Plus, for Ohio State, it's their mid-semester fall break. So the guys are going to be out on Thursday, Friday. They've got some time off. And so with that, they had early practice Thursday. You cut them loose. The reality is, too, most of these guys stay at home. That's from Lancaster. So I could hop in the car, I'd go down to Lancaster, watch my dad coach, my brothers play, all those good things. some of the guys will be going back around Ohio, but talking to a lot of the players, I mean, these guys are all business. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka will probably be in there and drag Julian along with them. They'll be in there catching balls on Saturday morning. Now, I love the effort. I love the grind. Those guys get after it, man. They work incredibly hard. Tommy Eichenberg, Steele Chambers, Cody Simon, those guys, they'll be in there, get a workout in. They'll get some treatment. They'll be watching film. Those guys will probably all be football heads sitting around, hanging out together. Cade Stover, that whole crew that lives together, all those guys, like they'll be sitting around watching football, taking care of their bodies. Some of the guys go home, not many anymore. But it's this. Everybody needs a little something different. If you can get home and get back, like you've played 6 games, you've got 6 more. It's a marathon, but it goes quick. It goes real fast. Heck, the season is halfway over. So joking with some of the veteran guys, like, you know what? Sometimes it's important just to see some different faces, to get out of here. Maybe you go out and hang out like a normal student on a Friday or Saturday night, not getting in trouble. Whether you got to go back home, see some of your friends from home, see your family, go to your high school football game on Friday or Saturday night, hang out a little bit, but just seeing some different faces. So when you come back, you're refreshed, you're energized, you feel like you're ready to tackle the world again. And you got 6 weeks left to sprint through that Big Ten championship game and then ultimately see what's on the other side of the ledger on New Year's Eve. Like that's how you got to look at this. So it's 6 weeks goes quick too. And then you got the 7th week bonus game, but there's a lot there. It's exciting. It's a great opportunity for these guys. And so that's kind of what the bye week is ultimately all about. We'll get to the games here in a minute. For some of the big games, one to get to the mailbag. One of the questions in the mailbag, though, and for people that have heard this before, I got a number of stories that I'll tell when I speak, and some of the stuff that is fun between AJ Schlegel and myself and other guys, Laurinaitis and Marcus Freeman, Nate Sally, Troy Smith. We got some great stories we had a really good crew, man. It was awesome to play with those guys. So Tyler Everett, I mean, it was a lot of fun to get back and kind of clown around with them, especially on the bye week. But there's one great story, and so it involves Anthony Schlegel, who, is from Dallas, Texas, but we used to call him the urban cowboy because Schlegel's pretended like everybody in Texas grew up on like some sort of ranch, like West Texas out there herding cattle. Like it was the 4-6s ranch out of Yellowstone, for heaven's sake. Schlegel grew up in Dallas. Yeah, he grew up in South Fort Worth and then Highland Park, the nicest part of Dallas. Before that, he was in DeSoto for the time he grew up. So he liked to come up and hunt. And Schlegel would always sit up and hunt, talk about how he kill these hogs in Texas, I'll kill all these deer, do all this stuff. So Fridays before games, AJ Schlegel and myself, we had a very specific routine. It's awesome because I've seen some of the DBs doing some of this at a small scale. I think Tommy and Steele do it a little bit. Where we used to come in on Fridays, we get in early, we get a little lift in, nothing crazy, like 25 to 40 minutes, just hanging out, getting your joints feeling good, loosened up, get like all tightened up before the game, make sure you're feeling good, feeling strong. One of us every week we'd rotate because this was before endless food and all that stuff. We'd go up and get Subway. And so we'd have someone go up, get the 3 orders, $5 footlongs. They'd kind of hook it up, give us some extra meat and some things on there, bring back the subs. And that would give us a jump while the other 2 guys would get in the cold tub. And then the third person would come back and join. And we go sit and eat our subs and watch film before meetings. Just the 3 of us, break it down. Depending on how big the game was how serious the film and session was. But still, we're in there watching, just getting a feel for maybe some third down or red zone or something maybe we haven't seen. So on one particular Friday, it was fairly mid-season. It wasn't super cold yet, but it was around deer season, around this time. Schlegel's on Mondays, lift and then go hit the deer stand. Lift at 6, go hit the deer stand, maybe even earlier. Sometimes he wouldn't lift. And we'd always ask him, Schlegel, you get anything? Did you get anything? No. I saw a doe, I saw this, bro, I saw that, but never got anything. So we're like, dude, you're the fake hunter, you're the urban cowboy. And so this particular Friday before a game, we were beating him up a lot. So he leaves. It was his turn to get the Subway. AJ and I get in the cold tub, sitting in there, horsing around, go shower. By this time, where's Schlegel? Like, he should be here by now. He normally joins in the cold tub, last 5 minutes, hangs out, whatever, shower. We go eat. Still wasn't there. Walking around, can't find him. Now I'm like, where the heck's my food? That's the other thing. Like now, dude, What happened? You get lost, get a flat tire. The subway's like 2 miles down the road, just north of Ackerman. And finally go in the equipment room. Like, dude, have you guys seen Schlegs? No, we haven't seen him. He goes, you know what? You should check your locker. Or no, he goes, he was just in here, but I think you should check your locker. So I go over to my locker and I'm walking toward, I can see this box in there. And it's like a case, like if you ever see like 4 6-packs of, beer or Coke, any type of can that they carry them in, those like little flats that are a couple inches tall. And I see that sitting in my locker and there's something kind of like laying in there and there's a white piece of paper over it. I can kind of see him like walking forward. What the heck is that? And I'll be damned if I didn't walk up there and there was a dead squirrel with an arrow gouged through its neck, like it's on a skewer, sitting there with on the top, it said, "Dear Bobby, Schleg's got me in the parking lot. Love," like Alvin, I think, or something like that, or Mr. Squirrel, it was something crazy. But there was a freaking dead squirrel that Schleg's had shot in the parking lot of the Woody Hayes with his bow when he got back from Subway and laid it in my locker, got that little deal out of the equipment room and put it in there. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? I got a bloody arrow and a dead squirrel. Like, I just can't throw that in the trash can. So I had to go give it to the equipment. I'm like, go throw that in the dumpster. Like, that thing would be stinking to high heaven if it was left in there for the weekend. And so I go back and Schleg's just laughing. I finally got something. I'm like, bro, I think that broke a number of laws. I actually told that at like a law enforcement like dinner that I spoke at, and they're all laughing. I'm like, I don't know if you're allowed to shoot a compound bow inside the city limits of Columbus or on Ohio State's campus, but I think the statute of limitations are up. Heck, that happened all the way back in 2005. So yeah, so that's the squirrel story that someone wanted me to tell. And so now we'll get to the mailbag here and take a look at some of the questions as I had it all pulled up and I slowly lost. So we'll take a look at some of the questions that everybody wants to know and kind of dig in and dive into here, the midweek mailbag. And so I love getting in here, talking about questions. First one is 2.5 sacks and 7 snaps ridiculous or stupid ridiculous? Well, that's in reference to Mike Hall playing so few snaps and getting 2.5 sacks. And really he was in on a third, but a penalty negated it. I would have to say that's stupid ridiculous for how good he is. Next question. Most dangerous teams as you see it right now outside of the top 4 if a playoff field were expanded this year. I look at Tennessee. I think Tennessee is really good. They're sitting there at 6. Oklahoma State, I think, is pretty good. Defensively, they're not bad. They're scoring a lot of points now, too. That's where Jim Knowles obviously came from. So defensively, I think they've taken a little bit of a step back, but they're really proficient on offense. And then USC, which I'll get that to the games, but USC can score the football. Can they stop anybody? I'm not really sure. But can they score the football? Well, we'll see. Or can they score the football? Absolutely. Can they stop anyone? We'll see. Is the special teams the weakest part of the team? I don't think so. They've had some mishaps. They've had some penalties. They had a return for a touchdown. They've also had some fumbled punts. They've had some dropped, kickoffs, some different things like that. I would not say it's the weakest part. It's been some individual stuff here and there. They have elite players. The coverage has been pretty good for the most part. They've done some good things. It's something that they're just working through, but I would say that the special teams is stepping up. And I think the second half of the season, they'll be much better than what they've been the first part. How scary is it that Ohio State hasn't even been 100% healthy yet? That's one thing that everybody's looking at. This Ohio State team has been incredibly proficient, and they didn't have maybe the best receiver in college football. He's played a handful of snaps this season, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. You've seen Travion and Milan back and forth. They've been injured at the defensive backfield. Sometimes Mike Hall has been in and out. And they've been dominating. And so, yes, everybody's looking at that and saying, yeah, this is scary because Ohio State's playing really well. That speaks to the depth that they have across a ton of positions. Are the defensive numbers skewed because the offenses they've faced, are they actually that good? Well, we're going to find out, not against Iowa next week, because if you want to talk about skew and numbers, they're going to be even worse. Ohio State's 15th in scoring defense, I think 7th or 8th in total defense. They're averaging about, giving up less than 16 a game, 15-8, something like that. Those numbers will drop against Iowa. I don't know who they're going to really face, though. They'll challenge them. Maryland, I think, can challenge and score the football a little bit. And then we'll ultimately see against Michigan. But looking at the schedule, there's no offensive dynamos that you look at in the Big Ten. I think the top 3 scoring defenses in the country are in the Big Ten, and it's like Minnesota, Iowa, oh goodness, someone else, maybe Illinois in there, and I think that's due to the fact that there's some offensive ineptitude, but this Ohio State defense is good, and they're getting better, and they're only gonna be better at the end of the season. Um, do you see the Buckeyes using Maserati Mitch as a true fullback as the weather gets colder, competition gets tougher, and as an added security blanket? Love to see him leading the way for mine and Trey on the old power, trap sweep. They're going to do some more of that. Ryan has shown it and thrown it out there. This offense is diverse. They're going to run some more zone read stuff. They're going to run some 22 personnel, which is that Mitch is that fullback, that true fullback, which that's something he can do and he's skilled at. They're going to have the full complement. They'll pull that stuff out when they need it. It'll come out against Michigan, maybe the Big Ten championship game, but then it'll come out in the college football playoff because not many people do it. So yeah, you can get in 3 and 4 wides, throw the ball over the place, and you could also bring it back down and mash. And that's big and that's important. Should Ryan Day let Kyle McCord run the real offense in garbage time, or would that be, quote, running up the score? I would love to see Kyle get like one legit series, and it's a balance, and Ryan talks about it, respecting your opponent, but still letting him get some work in. One legit series of saying, hey, let's go see what you can do. Leave the first offensive line and leave the one receivers and see what he looks like. Because we got to find out. There will be a day without CJ Stroud. And, Kyle's played more than CJ did coming in, but the more reps you get, the better you will be. So I would like to see that. I know Ryan's trying to balance it, and they're going to have some times here to be able to get that done. So hopefully we can see that. Question: with the ability Lathan Ransom has shown, is it worth it, or is there any benefit to letting McAllister get more reps and possibly play corner with depth of that position being an issue, being that the safety position is so deep? Wonder if McAllister could play outside corner. So McAllister plays, the inside slot corner. He could play outside. That's not really what he's best suited for. Like Cam Martinez can play outside, and we've seen him do it in a pinch. I think he's okay, and he'd be fine out there. Better than Tanner. Cam's a better athlete. Tanner's probably a better football player at this point, just due to experience. He can do it when needed. But there's some Jair Brown's playing well. Cam Brown is going to play better. J.K. Johnson is going to play better. Hancock, I think we will start to see back in here, and I'll get into that with some of the injury stuff. I think we're going to start to see Jordan Hancock before too long. Denzel, like these guys, they're going to start playing better. They're getting the reps. They're going to start sinking in. A lot of them were hurt at points in time, and so that was some of the issue. How could the emergence of G. Scott open up the offense? Well, you saw G finally get his first touchdown. I was waxing poetically about how good he was in the last episode. Really excited for him. He's worked hard. He's working at blocking. He's gotten so much better there. He's a good route runner. There's only one football, but he's another guy that allows you to get in 22 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, 2 backs. You flex G and you can get him on like a safety or a small corner. Then you got Cade Stover on a safety. You got Mitch Ross. You can move those guys around, flex out Trey. I mean, you've got some options there, and it gives you versatility within position groups. So I think that's big. His emergence is going to be huge, especially moving into the future as well. Biggest weakness on the Buckeyes defense, and how do you fix it? I think right now they've struggled a little bit, obviously, with the deep ball. The only way to get better at it is practice it. Working on deep balls in practice. That's something Tim Walton and Perry are working with the guys on, and just getting confidence and doing it. You go against great players every day in practice, so they're going to be fine. Sometimes it becomes a confidence issue. You get a little bit of the yips, you start panicking because you don't want to give it up, and it kind of steamrolls. That's why I think the bye week is a good time. Get away, get out of your mind, and start moving forward. My man Jack Muhart had a great question for us. He said, why don't we call it Craps Corner? Just switch the A and the R there. Jack's a smart guy. I like where he's going with that. I think that might be something we do in the future. Call it Craps Corner. Yeah. Maybe you get some OBJ stuff in there, some defecation. I mean, those are all things that we're looking forward to. I love Jack's play on words. Really smart guy. Good friend. How wild is the next Carpenter tailgate, Carpenter heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric going to be? It should be a good time. Hopefully we'll get that going here for the Michigan game. And that's our servicing company we got. So if you need anything, the Twitter handle is at 614 underscore or at Carpenter _614. Carpenter Columbus is the website. So hit that up. I think that might have been a plan. Are we watching the beginning of a few years of legitimately the best Ohio State football team ever? Dynasty in the making. I think it could get there. Offensive line's been really good this year, a little bit thin in depth. And so that's the one thing. They've got to stay healthy. And then also next season, as we already fast forward, Buckeye Nation, which we have to do that, that's the one place you have to try to find some reserves and develop players quickly. And then also developing a quarterback. CJ will be gone. Running backs will be back. A lot of the receivers are going to be back. A lot of the defense is going to be back. I mean, this team could be really good. And guys have extra years of eligibility, so they'll have to make choices of what they ultimately want to do in their career. So what they've done. Better tackler between myself and AJ Hawk. Now, listen, I'm always going to say that I was the best open field tackler on our defense in 05. AJ may argue with me about that. Schlegel can't even be in the conversation because he missed Vince Young when he was standing straight up in the pocket. Vince just sidestepped him. AJ is a great open field tackler. AJ might have been a little bit better and more ferocious tackler than me in the box, but I think I was a better tackler in space than he was. Talked about fixing the back Buckeye secondary. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba he's going to come back this season. Jackson loves ball. I don't think this is a thing where he's shutting it down, not playing anymore. Asked if I ever pushed a cameraman. Never have pushed a cameraman. Told the dead squirrel story. What do I think? What do I think about the Kirk Barton situation? That's a tough one for me. I like Kirk. I played with him for 3 years at Ohio State. We were friends afterwards. Never the closest two guys together, but I considered Kirk a friend. When I heard about that, it hurt me because Kirk was always a guy that was like, screw the rest of the world. It's all in this room. It's all in this building. Take care of the guys around you. And, Ryan's been kind enough, and a lot of former players get great access at Ohio State. They want guys around, but you have to understand things. I have to be able to delineate what is media appropriate and what is player appropriate, and understanding and protecting that what you see and hear and what is said in there stays in there to a certain extent. And anybody that would jeopardize that trust, you don't deserve the access of being around players. They trust you because you were part of that. You're part of a brotherhood. You've done what they've done. You've worked at it. You've grinded. And to give away a competitive advantage for a couple bucks or for social media like that stings, because the coaches work too hard, the players work too hard, and man, it's tough. And there's a bunch of former players I played with have all been talking about this as that story broke. And I said, I consider Kirk a friend. Hopefully, I believe in second chances. I believe in redemption and everything that, comes along with that. It's going to take some time, but no different than, Ray Small and Rob Rose, when those guys, sold out the team for doing an interview about the tattoos and everything, and they got paid $500 a piece. You might as well be Judas at that point. You're selling out your brothers for 30 pieces of silver. Like, man, it better be a heck of a payday, because you're burning up a lot of relationship equity when you do that, and understanding like how hard people work. When you work in the media, I talk to a lot of coaches and have called games and done all this stuff. And I always try to tell them, like, you can tell me things. I'm not going to tell the other side. I'm not going to tell the other coaches. I'm not going to leak things back and forth, because I respect how hard you work. I respect how hard your players work, because I know how hard it is. It's not an easy thing to do. And so that stings. That stings. It's really, really hard. It's tough to talk about. So I'm going to put that to bed. That'll be the last question that we've got right there. Some of the better news, some of the big games this week. Penn State going to Michigan 10-5. Michigan 7-point favorites. We're going to find out a little bit about both of these teams. I'm not sure exactly how good either one of them are. I know JJ McCarthy's been playing pretty well for Michigan. He'll make some bonehead mistakes every now and then, but he'll play really well as well. Sean Clifford, that savvy veteran, 5th-year starter, I believe, for Penn State. I think the weakness is maybe their offensive line, but their running game's still been pretty good. They're able to throw the ball pretty well, and it looks like a legit defense. Don't think that Michigan defense is quite as good as they were a year ago. We're going to find out. So that's a nice game at noon that we have. We got 19 Kansas taking on Oklahoma at noon as well. Oklahoma's somehow favored by 9, which doesn't even make sense. This is just a game of intrigue for me, because OU is one of the blue bloods, and they've been at the top right there with Ohio State for really the last 20 years. And so to see if they can beat Kansas and pull this thing together. That will be very interesting. A Big Ten tilt in the West to see who could potentially play. 5-1 Illinois, welcoming in 4-1 Minnesota. Illinois finally ranked. Brett Bielema went and smacked Wisconsin and got Paul Chris fired, but they're ranked 24th. Minnesota, though, is 6.5-point favorite on the road. I think Minnesota, they're ranked like top 10 in offense and defense. I thought Minnesota was the dark horse to win this thing. I thought they should be undefeated right now. They've had a bad hiccup. They need to get this thing taken care of. I think they can beat Illinois, but I think it's a close game. Brett Bielema's going to try to impose his will and pound the football. So we got that going. But that could determine the West champion for the Big Ten, who you could be playing. Look at that as a preview. Chance to do some future scouting. Bama and Tennessee. 3 versus 6. Bama's somehow favored by a touchdown and a half. See how well Bryce Young plays, how much he plays. When he's not in there, their offense struggles, and they may even struggle with him a little bit. Hendon Hooker for Tennessee has been phenomenal. They're going to be able to score. I think if Tennessee gets to 35 points or more, they ultimately win that game. Big one here for playoffs. We talked about who is dangerous outside of the top 4. USC going to Utah. Utah is favored by 3.5. USC can fill it up on offense, but can they stop anyone on defense? They've been living on turnovers, and that's what's allowed their defense to get off the field. Utah is going to try to line and pound the ball. Can they play keep away? Can they score enough? And that could give a potential roadmap. If USC wins, but Utah is able to kind of control the game. I mean, USC's a big branded school. If they go undefeated in the Pac-12, they're probably going to get that 4 spot. It'll be between them and Clemson. And I'm curious to see how that shakes out. And they'll probably have a pretty big one at the end of the year. Notre Dame is getting rolling again, and then they also play UCLA. So that should be interesting how all that shakes out. Like I said, the injuries, JSN, I don't know, Milan might be back for the Iowa game. Could be. I think JSN was close. Trey, I think, should be good to ultimately go there as well. And hopefully we get to see Jordan Hancock at some point because, he's a heck of a player and a big body corner. You can see him get in there and do some things to help out. So big news there. That ends this edition of Carps Corner. Like I said, like, subscribe. Any questions you have, share it with friends. A lot of good information here, a lot of stories, a lot of fun stuff. So hopefully we'll keep this rolling. And 6 weeks left, folks. Got the bye week. Relax, enjoy some other games. And we'll talk to you soon.